What is education, and why is education important? Is it important? After all, what's the real purpose of getting educated about anything? We so frequently take education and the process for learning in general totally for granted. Not only that, but the ways in which we think. How we've gone about structuring our own consciousness itself has largely remained unchanged for a long, long time. So how do we literally change our minds? Can we reconfigure our own ways of thinking? And if so, how? Join Dr. Joseph Atman, the founder of one of the world's most revolutionary educational centers, Middletree, and award-winning broadcaster Tammy Trujillo for Educate Everyone, and explore the mysteries of our own consciousness and the education we implement in order for it to be what it is.
And this is part 2 of our interview on Educate Everyone with Marybeth Gasman. She's the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Endowed Chair in Education and a distinguished professor at Rutgers University. She's a leading scholar on historically black colleges and universities and equity in higher education, and has authored or edited over 35 books and written hundreds of scholarly and public articles. She's recognized as one of the most influential education scholars in the U.S.
Education is really all about presenting people with opportunities or informing them of their own potential. And as I always say, education should be more about allowing people to understand both themselves and then their relationship to the world, right? So there really is this sort of almost a misnomer about education, about it. All it is information being downloaded into people's minds. Where really the true and I think the best kind of education is one that allows people to make their own choices, to think critically, to be presented with opportunity, and then create more opportunity from those choices and from their understanding about, again, not only themselves, but their relationship to the world and what they could contribute to it. So I think that you're right to say that we educate people to give them opportunity. And that's maybe the greatest gift of education, is to present folks with opportunity. That being said, I think we have more opportunity now than ever in so many different ways, with technological advancements, with things coming so quickly to so many different heads that it's almost like we're in opportunity overload. We, I think, as a culture and a society, almost don't know what to do with it all, because you can basically get any kind of education that you want at this point in any way that you want it. There is so much opportunity out there right now.
I think there is a lot of opportunity. It's just who controls who gets access to that opportunity. And right now we have like this whole push, which it makes me really ill when I think about it. This idea that whenever a person of color succeeds or excels in an area or is in a position, that you have people who are saying, oh, they're only in that position because they're a person of color. I mean, what a horrible thing to say. It's not true at all. They're there because they worked hard to be in the position and because they are highly skilled in the position, and not because they were given the position merely because of their race. This is completely inaccurate. And so I think that there are people who are saying those things to try to take opportunity from other people. I think you're seeing that with regard to women. I think that you're seeing that with regard to a variety of people of color. And it's really hard for me to watch. There are opportunities, but people are trying to limit who gets those opportunities.
Sure. I think that there were maybe enough instances of those things taking place that maybe got picked up in certain circles or by the media and exploited. There were some company policies that maybe went too far the other way. But I think by and large, we live in a meritocracy. I think as someone who runs a business and have employed at very high levels a number of different minorities and continue to, you'd be foolish to do anything other than employ people because of their capacity, right? So I don't think that, narrative is going to hold out for too much longer, because it's totally not true about people just being employed based on various things, demographically, or racially, ethnically, gender-wise about them. But I think there was probably enough of that happened in some extreme cases, and was picked up by the media, that certain outlets ran with that. And that's something that's kind of dangerous about the sort of climate that we live in, that it's this ultra rapid game of telephone that isn't fact checked, right?
Right. The thing I was going to say is that the same people who might be complaining about a company's policy around hiring are not saying anything when it comes to nepotism, where white men are hired, right, or legacy admissions, where hordes of white people get into positions because they are legacies. They're not saying anything about that. And so I think if you're going to call out what you think are inequities, then call them all out.
Totally, because nepotism isn't going anywhere, right? Nepotism is never going away. That's something that'll always be there for sure, right? And you're totally right. I mean, you're either getting a position because of your value or your worth, or there's some other factors that play a part in there. And I think you're totally right. We don't look at those other factors enough, but especially in light of things that you just pointed out about people obtaining certain positions because of various factors that are unrelated to their actual capacity to do it.
It's really difficult when I hear people dismiss people of color immediately, not believing in their intellect, in their contributions. And I often hear people who will say, let's say someone's hired for a position, they will immediately question their quality and their preparedness if they're a person of color. I mean, that's just downright racist. Would you do that to a white person? Most people would never do that, but they will do it to a person of color. And I've seen this happen over and over and over in so many different instances. And I think that people need to check themselves when they do that. Like if you're assuming that someone isn't qualified when you find out they're a person of color or a woman, that's like racism and sexism. That's how it works. Now, if you think they're not qualified because they're actually not qualified, that's completely different. Like if they don't have the skills or education needed, that's completely different. But if you think it because of someone's race or gender, that's racism and sexism. That's what that is.
Sure. I wonder if at some point here, I'd like to think that at some point within my lifetime, that racism, sexism, like these things are just going to start to, I hope, fade away. Do you have any inkling about that?
How old are you?
I'm 45.
Okay, so I'm 57, and I will tell you that I do not believe in my lifetime they are going to fade away. My mother is 94. I mean, she wants a better world so desperately before she passes on. I do not think they're going to fade away. I would like racism and sexism to go away, but I know as a woman, I experience sexism nearly every day in some way. I experienced it today, in fact. And I know that every person of color that I know experiences prejudice and some kind of racism, probably on a weekly basis in some way. And I think we have to get people to realize that you can appreciate people's differences and who they are and acknowledge their differences. And at the same time, you can make sure to treat people equitably. And we also have to get people to realize that by being equitable, that doesn't mean that other people need to lose. They're not losing out. It's just that there are these groups of people who have not been treated equitably, and we need to do something about it. It's incredibly important. And I know that equity has become a bad word with the Trump administration, but I'm going to continue to say it because it's incredibly important. It's incredibly important that we have equity in our society. I want that for my daughter. I want that for my friends. I want that for everyone in my life. I want them to have an equitable opportunity.
Yeah, certainly. I'm just hopeful that just given that I think we've made great strides in the last 50, 75, 100 years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's much better than that. I
think we just continue on that path. And I'm sure that at some point, it maybe not within my lifetime. I don't know. Because just like you said earlier, education is all about being presented with an understanding opportunity. And understanding, of course, as the historian, right? What's the famous saying? Those who don't understand the past are condemned to repeat it. I think with all the information that we have available to us, and I think we're able to further and further sympathize and even empathize with one another. And certainly communicate. A large part of education is about communication, the capacity to communicate and the capacity to comprehend what's being communicated. And I think that the more exposure that we have to those capacities, the better we'll be able to sympathize with others, the better we'll be able to then, with our certain experiences and taking those ideas into informing our own experiences, be able to empathize with people, or just being a more sympathetic and empathetic society.
I mean, I want that.
But I think that that's part of the goal of education. And I think that's part of a lot of people's missions in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different sectors. And so if you want that, most people want that, what's the best way to get there, do you think?
Well, I want that because I want people to have opportunity, but I think there's a whole group of people who don't necessarily want that right now. And so I believe that there is immense potential for that because I think at their core, humans are good. But I think that some of the underside of humanity has been riled up as of late, and that makes it more and more difficult. You know, we have people who are trying to get us to dislike other people based on race, gender, sexuality, a variety of other kinds of things. And I hope that people don't do that. But what I see is quite a bit of that, unfortunately. And so, you know, that's one of the reasons why I said that for me, I want to teach people how to critically think. I want to teach them to be empathetic. I want to teach them to try to understand the world from other people's perspectives. I want them to talk to each other. We're in a world right now where people don't want to talk to each other. And that makes me really sad. As an optimist, I'm hoping it's going to turn around. And as a historian, I know it will turn around. But will it slip back? It might. And will we move forward at some point in the future? Hopefully. So, I mean, I do know as a historian that these things are like cycles. And depending on where your vantage point is, this could be a really good time for you right now, or it could be a really, really difficult time. I think for me, given the work that I do related to race and class, it's a pretty challenging time because people that I really care about are being hurt. And that can be really difficult.
So again, how do you get people continuing to talk to one another? How do you get people to continue to progress? How do you get those cycles to be less and less extreme and dramatic or traumatic for those who are experiencing sort of the down slope of that?
I mean, I think you got to talk to each other. What I've been telling people who are really, really feeling low is don't let people steal your joy. Like, continue to do things that make you feel joyful. Surround yourself with people that you love and who love you. Make sure that you're not operating in a bubble. Like, get out and talk to people. I think read. I tell people to stay off of social media, like in terms of consuming tons of information. Read books, read reputable sources, and really try to think for yourself. Make your own decisions. Don't let other people sway you. Make your own decisions. Do some research. Be evidence-based. That's what I tell people.
Obviously, talking to people is a really important thing to do. Not everyone has that capacity, though, or is comfortable in having a dialogue with other folks about that stuff.
True.
I do think that that's great advice and a step in the right direction. Are there other places that people who, again, are feeling disenfranchised can go to, other resources, other outlets for them that either you all provide at Rutgers or other places that you're aware of?
Well, I mean, we provide all kinds of things. Like through the Proctor Institute, we have all kinds of resources that are all free that people can download on our website. It's Proctor Institute at Rutgers. And we also have lots of webinars. We have a podcast series that explores all kinds of different topics, things I agree with and things I disagree with, because I think that's really important. I think we regularly have in-person events where people can come and talk to each other across difference. All of our events are so diverse. It's just amazing. You know, that's one of the things that I absolutely love. People from all walks of life. I love that. And the interesting thing is in this world we're living in, we're still getting, like for our virtual events, we get hundreds upon hundreds of people from all over the country taking the virtual sessions. And one of the things that I love is that they're all completely different. You know, I love that. I love that they're all there to learn, but completely different. So I would also say there are a lot of really good books out right now. Take a look at different book reviews, different lists of maybe history or really good fiction that inspires you or nonfiction. I would read about politics. I would read about economics. I would read about history. I would read about things that are really important, like empathy and love and care, and also read about how to be introspective so that you can think about yourself as well and how you can change and how you can be a better person. I think there are also resources like connected conversation organizations, people who are trying to bring people together across difference. That's really, really important. I mean, one thing about me is I'm not going to dismiss someone just because they disagree with me. I'm actually going to have a conversation with them. And part of that is because I grew up in an environment where people disagreed. Not everybody agreed, and I didn't even agree with my own father. So I'm going to learn to talk to people because I might learn something from them, and I might convince them of something. And I think it's incredibly important to talk across difference.
Not agreeing. Having some conflict is really healthy. It actually gets us further down the road than if everybody's in that sycophantic kind of agreeable state. Just a little bit of conflict, a little bit of strife, a little bit of struggle, I think, is probably good for all of us. So, but thank you for talking to us here today, Marybeth.
Of course. I enjoyed this conversation immensely. And I guess I would just say, try to keep an open mind, want the best for other people. I always try to remember, if people are talking to you about others, they're probably talking about you to others, and probably not in positive ways. One thing I do is I try to put out some goodness every day. I compliment people who I don't even know. I'll be walking down the street and compliment people because the world is not happy right now, and just give some goodness back. Instead of gossiping, talk really positively about others who you believe in, right? Like, instead of putting people down, think about ways to lift people up. Instead of complaining about people, think about ways that you could help them. I mean, I just think we really have to be a lot more positive in this time that we're in. And I'm not saying I'm perfect about this, but I certainly am trying.
Hey, it's obviously great advice, no matter what the time is, politically, socially, economically, whatever, just day to day, right? Where can people find more of your work, Marybeth?
Well, they can follow me on LinkedIn. They can connect with me on LinkedIn. I write for Forbes, and I write for a lot of different outlets. I also have written 35 books, so I post about them. I have some new ones coming out. So on LinkedIn, if you want a little joy, I love photography and beauty, so you can follow me on Instagram. It's just at Marybeth Gasman. I'm also on X if people want to follow me. It's the same, Marybeth Gasman. And happy to connect that way. Or if you want to connect professionally, you can contact me at my Rutgers email. That sounds fine. But LinkedIn is probably the very best way to connect with me. 35
books, and I'm having a difficult time finishing this 6-line poem that I'm working on. So good for you. Thank you so much for being here, Marybeth. We really appreciate it. I really enjoyed this also, and I hope you come back and talk more with us, because this was great. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And now the Middle Tree Minute.
This is Kristen Hernandez, Middle Tree's executive assistant. When your student is reviewing for a test, ask them to explain the lesson to you in just 3 steps. For example, how do you multiply fractions? They might say, step 1, multiply the top numbers. Step 2, multiply the bottom numbers. Step 3, simplify. If they can shrink a big concept into 3 steps, then you know they understand it. If not, it's a signal to go back and review. Quick, simple, and powerful. And that's the Middle Tree Minute.
And now a quick look into Dr. Atman's book, A Philosophical War. Joe, we've been talking about the ideas that comprise this book in general. So before we go forward, let's take a step back. I want to remind everybody about the impetus for this project to begin. What got you going on it?
So what I really became interested in doing was understanding why we kind of have the consciousness that we do. We've talked a number of times about, within these segments, about that human beings actually sort of have and had and continue to have a choice to construct our mental capacities and the consciousness that comes out of those in a very particular way. My sort of thesis running throughout this whole project, in fact, was that we've made a particular choice, largely implementing an unknown element that I've been intentionally very coy about naming exactly up to this point, because it's framed us in such a way that it's something that we implement at every stage of our conscious experience, and we're simply not aware of not only what it is, but the mechanisms there. It's penetrated us so deeply that we don't even really know that it exists. So I thought, to kind of frame it in this performative sort of manner, I said, well, there's something that takes us as human beings in some way out of alignment from the things that we're constantly seeking, and that we're seeking anything to begin with should be a sign within us that something is out of alignment. We've talked previously about how cats don't question what it is to be a cat. Trees just grow in accordance to their genus and to their environment and all that. Human beings are a complete and total enigma, mystery, wild goose chase frequently in the way that we conduct our lives and how we go about understanding who we are. So given that is the case, I thought we really, I think, need to go back and examine not only the kind of consciousness that we have, but what that allows for, what that keeps us from. And I think we need to question whether or not we can or should change it. And so that's sort of what sparked this project. And it was also coming out of my dissertation, where I was very much told, you can't write about the things you want to write about necessarily in this regard. We've got to focus on, the work of previous folks within the field and build off of those things. And I wanted to forge my own way and create something of my own philosophy, to be honest with you, I guess. Although that wasn't really the intention per se, I suppose. But I wanted to look at, discover, think about, examine things that I didn't see a whole lot of other, not only philosophers or theologians do, but people do in general, not just in academic fields, but I suppose just generally. Something we don't talk about. Why do we have the kind of consciousness that we do? So I've identified, and again, this is where this is performative, I've identified a quote unquote enemy to it that is kind of latched onto our consciousness and become a part of what we are. And so we're going to start talking about exactly what that is, why it's dangerous, why it has so deeply latched into the dregs of our very beings, and how that affects us in ways both positive and negative. So, and even that we, again, just don't really have a modality by which to operate with outside of this element of this thing that I've labeled as something that is performative, as an enemy. So I'll be anxious to get to and talk about exactly what that is here shortly.
Thank you for listening to Educate Everyone with Dr. Joseph Atman and Tammy Trujillo. Join us each week as we explore the inner workings of our own minds and the educational system which builds and supports it. Also, check out our website at middletree.org to see what opportunities Middletree's programs can offer you or your student. And join us on social media. If you have any questions you'd like Dr. Atman to answer, please leave them on a post or send us a message, and you may hear them answered on the next episode of Educate Everyone. Until then, thanks for tuning in.